In a moment, we'll get started here. Obviously, I want to give your attention to Shanice Marlowe. Did an exceptional job with her culminating experience and model presentation. A very great comprehensive view of knitting and the like and crocheting. So without further ado, I'm going to give it to our own Shanice Marlowe.
Hi guys! So as you can see on the board, well, not really, kind of. It's What's on the Wall, that's the title of my project. I will be introducing you to the art of crocheting. Oh. Introduction. So of course you already know my name. My name is Shanice Marlowe. My project is mainly about exploring different patterns within crocheting, whether it be written, diagrams, or freeforms. Probably wondering why I chose this project, and it all starts back with little Shanice. Sorry guys if you're in the photo. So right here, this little space bump at the top, that is me. I was in the Knitting and Crochet Club. Miss Robinson, an old teacher of mine, decided that it would be best if I decided to join the club. And I heard of knitting. Everybody knows about knitting. Not that many people know about crocheting, and I was one of those people. I never heard about crocheting. So I was really intrigued by it. And so I wanted to dive in a little deeper. And let me tell you, this is not as easy as people make it out to be. I was the slowest, but thank God I didn't give up. Because if I gave up, I wouldn't be here today showing you all my little crappy projects I made. So before we get into something that I have prepared for you guys, I want you guys to get a better understanding of the history of crocheting. So crocheting, the answers of crocheting are tambour embroidery and shepherd's knitting. Tambour embroidery is a type of embroidery that was found in China, but it became popular in England and throughout Europe in the 1760s. As you can see, tambour embroidery uses a rather small hook, similar to the crochet hooks that you see right here. This is, I don't know if you guys can see because it's a rather small hook, but it's really similar to the ones that you see on the board. And it's a raised embroidery compared to regular embroidery, which is rather flattened. It's more texturous, and if you can see over there on that screen, on this screen, of course, this screen, you can see a type of, in crochet we call a chain stitch. So you normally find chain stitches in tambour embroidery. Crochet's other ancestor is shepherd's knitting, which also is really similar to the crochet hook, except instead of having a rounded body, it has more of a flattened body. It originated in Scotland. Shepherd's knitting originated in Scotland, and it became a really popular craft in England in the 1700s, late 1700s and early 1800s. Now, before I continue on talking about the Penelope magazine, I also wanted to mention that a lot of people didn't really fancy shepherd's knitting because it was more of a loose stitching compared to the needles that you see right here. These are your typical knitting needles. So it wasn't really it was common, but it wasn't as popular or favored compared to regular knitting. I just wanted to make that clear. Continuing on with the presentation, we have the first ever, this is where crocheting was now modernized as an art. In the Penelope magazine, which was produced in early 1820s, roughly about that. This was a Dutch magazine, and crocheting was a very popular art in the Netherlands and soon made its way in England. Within the magazine, they would use tambour needles because crochet hooks, the modern crochet hooks weren't invented as of yet, and they would combine both tambour embroidery patterns and shepherd's knitting patterns in order to create the art of crocheting. However, the modern crochet hook the word crochet in general didn't come about until 1837 in England in a knitting instructions book called The Ladies' Knitting and Netting Book. And that book talked about how to make a purse using crochet patterns, so that's really interesting. Like I said, the modern day hook didn't really get invented until like the 1830s, 1840s. Because as you can see, it was more, well, back in the old style, it was more of a flattened hook compared to the ones that we see now, that are more round, less tapered, and have a smaller head. Common crochet patterns, projects that you may find are Irish lace. Bronze lace is not crochet, it's needlework, but Irish lace imitated Bronze lace because at the time Bronze lace was seen as a rather regal lace. And so Irish lace came about originating around the 1840s, but it gained its popularity during the Irish famine because at the time, the Irish family, they couldn't really provide for their families, so this was a source of income for them. And Irish lace was a faster and a more easier way to crochet instead of doing the bronze lace, which took a rather long time. Irish lace is also very political in the sense that Irish lace created a divide between the lower class and the upper class in Ireland and England because Ireland at the time was a colony of England. And it was so important within the community in Ireland that Irish lace was taught in schools, similar to bronze lace, which was also taught in schools. A quick little history on bronze lace. We don't really know the origins as per se. However, it really gained its popularity in the 1500s. And you can still find today some of the Irish lace on wedding gowns. It's really common on wedding gowns. But back to talking about Irish lace. Irish lace sort of backfired in terms of trying to build up this economy because people take this craft and carry it to America. Now we're in America, I'd like to talk about American crochet. Crochet came to America around the late 1800s. It really gained its popularity in the 1910s with light threads, so more like doily-like materials. I don't know if you guys ever seen like a doily at your grandma's house. So create a lot of those and simple patterns, and then it really gained popularity after World War I in the 1940s, especially after World War II in the 1970s, where we see a lot of like granny squares. But in the 1940s, it's more of like simple designs because it wasn't really, they didn't want to venture out as much until like post-World War II. So to continue on talking about history, I would like to talk about my PIG assignments. For those who do not know, PIG stands for Participation in Government. You have to have 8 PIG assignments within your WISE program, and I would like to share 4 of my favorite / interesting PIG assignments that I've done in my WISE experience. So the one I'm going to share today right now is yarn bombing. Yarn bombing is a type of activism that likes to bring awareness about whatever's going on in your community through the art of yarn, whether that be through embroidery, crocheting, knitting, anything to bring about awareness of what's going on in the community. A really famous yarn bomb activist is Magda Sayegh. Magda Sayegh's purpose in terms of activism is to help raise awareness of what's going on within our lives. Because we are living in the technology age, everything is so fast-paced. So we tend not to reflect on what we have done in the past. And so when you see her projects, as you see right here, she yarn bombed a bus in Mexico City, it makes you stop and look and question what's going on. And maybe even during that whole questioning time, it makes you question your life and your decisions and how you feel that's going on. The other PIG assignment I would like to share is the Willow Project. The Willow Project is a pipeline that is currently being built in Alaska that is very detrimental to the earth. Oh, in general, pipelines are really bad because they affect the earth and the climate and temperature and overall the migration, especially the indigenous people living within the Alpine Alaska community. Sadly, this project has been approved by the Biden administration, and a lot of people are trying to fight and sue ConocoPhillips, which is the company that is building the pipelines, against it because it hurts the indigenous and the caribou and other animals within this community, which they survive off of for feeding. For this PIG assignment, I wanted to write a letter to Senator Gillibrand. I also learned that you have to make your letters short. I thought I could make it like long, but I learned that you have to keep it 3 paragraphs, like 3 sentences per paragraph. So you have to hit home with each point, and you have to ask your questions, and you have to make sure that they can understand what you want them to do. And I made sure I did that within my essay, or your letter. TikTok trial. A lot of you may know about TikTok being held on Congress for having interferences with China, and the government was very worried for the American safety. Even the CEO of China felt as though that's not the case with using the app. However, of course, the government thought otherwise, and this trial brought a lot of fear within people because they weren't sure how they were going to make their income. TikTok helps pay content creators, especially small businesses, who were able to raise awareness about said businesses. And a lot of content creators feel as though they don't get as much, spotlight in a sense, compared to other apps like Instagram or Facebook. You see it right there, it's quick, you click, you like, and you can always copy, link, and spread about said business. And they felt as though with TikTok potentially being banned in the United States, that it can cause a great stir and they can lose a lot of their money, which I found really devastating because a lot of crochet patterns and interested in future projects I want to do, I saw off of TikTok. So I was really scared for those whose app they use for their income. And the last one I'd like to share was probably one of my favorites. I am now registered to vote. I learned within my RISE program that it's really critical to vote within your local community because that's where it hits home first. As you know, recently, I think if I'm not mistaken, Tuesday is the voting for the budget. So if I was 18, I would vote. However, I don't turn 18 until July. But just know I'll be voting in November. When it comes to elections, I'll be here. And it just shows that how important it is to make sure that your community is still prospering. Because you do want the best for your community. And that's why it's so vital to vote. Voting is very key. And how about voting for your presidential elections, but it really hits home first. I would like to do a little demonstration. I know this is kind of weird segue, not really smooth transition, but I would like to teach a few of you guys how to crochet. I only sadly have a limited amount. I'm really happy with the turnout. I wish I had more yarn. However, the first, I want to say 12 people, I have yarn and I have needles for. So if you'd like to raise your hand who would want to participate, that'd be really grateful.
I'll help.
Good help?
I can pass that needle.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you're gonna try?
I think I want to hold on. Well, almost done. These are the news for demonstration.
I have some more for the Anybody on this side? Oh. Oh, yeah. You need my help?
This one is going to help. This one, I don't know.
Can I take these too?
I
got 2 more. 2 more.
Anybody want to learn?
Go hard?
You want to learn? Wait, can you see the backwards?
Yeah. Here's where I sit. Oh. I have one more.
That's good.
Do you want scissors? So maybe I can like make it a little cool.
You want scissors?
I don't know. Does that work?
I have yarn scissors in my bag.
It's gonna rain.
It's okay.
I forgot.
Speaker, so it can't go too far.
All right, so I taught myself how to crochet for lefties. So can anybody raise their hand if they're a lefty in here who has a yarn? You're a lefty of mine? All right, so I'm gonna start with the lefties first, and then the righties is gonna be easy because crochet is actually a right hand dominant fiber art. So with your right hand, Amaya, or anybody else who's also a lefty, I just want you to see Amaya raise her hand. You're going to wrap the yarn around your finger. And you're gonna wrap it where you make an X. Can you see that? An X on the side? And then you're going to pull the front yarn right here, and you're going to pull it back. And then you're going to pick it up and try to draw it, and it should hopefully make a loop. Did it make a loop? For those who have trouble, after I show the righties, I will also show you I'll give you one-on-one help after I'm done showing the righties. With that being said, you're going to use your hook. I like to hold my hook like this when I'm doing it with my left hand, more of a similar pencil hold. It's called pencil. On my right, I like to hold it, I guess, also similar to how I write like a pencil, but it really depends. As long as you're holding a hook that it's most comfortable to you. Now, with the long strand that's connected to the ball of the yarn, you want to draw your loop. And if it doesn't draw with I'll loosen it up again. If it doesn't draw, you can always use the short end. One of the ends should be able to draw the loop onto the hook. Now, what you want to do is you want to wrap the yarn to build tension, because that's really important when it comes to crocheting. So with my right hand, I like to wrap it around my pinky. As you can see, wrap it in front. Oh, sorry, my back. I like to wrap it in the back. Wrap it in the front, I'm so sorry. I wrap it in the front, wrap it in front of my ring and middle, and wrap it behind my pointer finger. This is for my right hand when I'm working with my left. And then, if you can wrap it as many times as you want, if it doesn't provide enough tension, this is how I do to provide myself tension. It's really in each of their own type of thing. And then, with that being said, I will use my right thumb and middle finger. Let me just wrap it one more time for myself. I'm going to use my right thumb and middle finger, and I'm going to hold on to the knot right here. While you are crocheting, you're going to need to move your right thumb and middle finger up later on. So right now, we're just going to start with the simple slip knot that we made earlier. So with that being said, what you want to do is you want to take your hook and you're going to go under the yarn like this. I'll do it one more time. Hold on. You want to go under the yarn. And then what you want to do is with your left hand, you're going to pull the crochet hook back. You're going to pull the crochet hook back and make sure that the yarn is caught under the hook of the crochet, because this is going to be very helpful in terms of making sure that there's tension in the yarn. You're going to pull the crochet hook back, and hopefully, if you keep on pulling, you make one chain stitch. What I just made was one chain stitch. Do it again. I'm going to take my hook. I'm actually going to move my thumb actually up to make sure it's more secure for me, but the tension is still good. And I'm going to take my left hand and wrap and move the needle or the crochet hook under the yarn that's right here. And I'm going to turn my hook down. And I'm going to loop over again. So that's for my lefties. And for my righties, I hold it differently. So I will demonstrate that as well. And then I'm going to be walking around for those who have hooks that seek assistance, because I'm here to help today. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did on my left hand in terms of making a slip knot. Can you guys see? I'm going to wrap it around. I'm going to make sure I make that X. And I'm going to hold it like this with my fingers. I should have done this with my lefties, my bad lefties. And then I'm going to take the front stitch and I'm going to pull it back. And I'm going to take the stitch that was in the back and pull it to the front, where it should make that loop again. So see right here. And this is how I hold the hook with my right hand. It's different from my left, as you can see. It's kind of crazy. Then I'm going to take the strings and I'm going to draw to the hook. You can use whether the long string or the short string, whatever it pulls to draw. You can it should, whichever string will pull. Then this is how I wrap it when I use my right hand. I put the yarn in front of all three of my hands, and then I wrap it around. This is my left hand, by the way. I wrap it in front of my ring, in front of my pinky ring in middle, and I wrap it back on my pointer. And sometimes I might do another wrap on my pointer to make it extra tight. Now, same thing with my right that I'm going to do with my left. I'm going to take my left thumb in middle. I'm going to hold the knot to add the tension, as you can see right here. And then, same thing with the left. We are going to take the hook and we are going to draw the hook under the loop, making sure that it gets caught within the crevice of the hook. And then we're going to pull back, making sure that the hook is facing the table or the ground. Pull it back, and we should have one chain. And we're going to do it again. We're going to go under. And then we're going to make sure it gets caught in the crevice. And then we're going to pull through. So right now, hopefully, you should have two. It's okay if you don't have two. It's okay if your stitches are loose, because if you are a newbie to beginner, it's rather you have it loose than tight. So anybody needs help, I'm going to be walking around to show the more detailed techniques.
Everyone needs help. Everybody needs help.
Everybody needs help? All right. Let's start with.
People are taking physics and
Right. I think that last one should have been good for him.
my favorite class. I never took it. But it's frustrating. He finished all of his finals yesterday. Because that's a regular class. is coming up. The senior trip is coming up, so they'll be on the week after Memorial Day. They'll be gone. 19 or 20.
You can hold some that are going on this day.
Yeah, 2021 kids. And they did survey all the kids, and you know, yesterday what you want, what you do, what's trying to reach you. So as far as like questions, and they have like senior day at 6 Flags.
Then that's the next.
We're sitting in the for him because he's had his permits. And of course, the last time he looked at me, I can't do this. But I'm trying to figure out, this is very limited. So we get that discounted attendance if they know he's I'm legit going to go talk to guidance for
That's my first time.
Exactly. Sometimes it helps if you figure out your summer travel plan.
Other than Raphael, it's hard to doing stuff.
How long will it be? Next step. Has he done that before? Sleepaway, like he's not going. When the kids were small, we obviously would visit them. Lucky enough to be there. Of course, when they were younger, we were there more time. It's like, now it's like we're lucky to do so. One year we were there for like Wait, can I do it like one? Because I don't want to forget what you do.
This is our meeting right here.
Take the end and
It's difficult.
I'm pissed. You turn it like this. You turn it like that. Here, you want to try it? Okay. Do this, right? And then I do this. I do this. No, look. Take it down from the outside. No, let go of the outside. Put it down. Take your thumb from the outside, right? Yeah, Yeah, no. Yeah, and loop it in. No. Loop it in from the back. That's my bag! That's what I was reading! Right? Put it through here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you want that one.
The extra string. No, the extra string.
Right, and then pull it through. So now you feel it. Just unwrap that, yeah. Yeah, and it's easier to keep moving down to the whole part because it's less likely to slip off. That was one of the points that she said. Transition back, right? Yeah. Told us to keep it down.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. So, first and foremost, for those who didn't get it today, you were just like me 6-7 years ago in the knitting club. You're like 8 teachers, not understanding how I couldn't get it. I understand. I get it. I was in your position. If you would still like to learn, even if you feel a little discouraged in today's meeting, come find me. I'm either in the wise room or the library. I'll sit down with you or freak out. I'll sit down with you forever how long, and I'll teach you how to chain. Even if that's all you know, I will teach you how to chain. I am determined. But I would like to, of course, sadly, conclude my presentation, but on a high note, my wise experience. So, I want to show off some of the projects, on top of the projects that you see right here, what I made throughout my time, the 4 to 5 months I've been in WISE. So, I learned how to read crochet. There's reading, diagrams, which is this book right here, which shows you diagrams, and then you have freeform, where you basically just look at the picture and you try to guesstimate almost on what they do within the stitches, or my personal favorite, YouTube. Well, actually, it got demoted because I don't have the patience anymore to pause, but that's not the point. So this right here is a doily, which you see right here. It's rather small. This was the most complicated project I've ever made because the yarn and the hooks are so small. Oh, yeah. They're so, you can't get this really small. It's really small, and the yarn is really thin. It's unlike, not like the yarn that you guys have today. This yarn is really thin. So this took me a while, and man, was it stressful. But I'm really happy that I completed it, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to say I can make a doily. I can make a doily now. So this pattern is a diagram pattern. So you read it, which right here shows you, these are chains, which I was teaching you today. These are chains, so it's telling you, I think this was approximately like 36 chains in this one, I can't really remember. And then right here, these symbols right here with the slash, like the T's and the slash, that is a double crochet, which is another stitch that you will learn in crochet if you want to continue with this craft. And so this project is mainly composed of chains and double crochets, which is what you see right here, which is right here. This is what it actually looks like. And fun fact, I used the yarn from 6th grade to make this project. This yarn's old. And I used this book, which composes both knitting and crocheting hooks. So all the way in the back, there are some potential patterns if you're interested in wanting to learn how to read the diagrams. This is a really good book. And then my favorite one, which is this is also from the book. I forgot to mention I did two. These are also, this is another set of diagrams. This is the freeform. So there was no instructions. I was working with Miss Huber, and I saw this on Pinterest, and I was like, I have to make this. I want to make this little alien monster thing. And so this was the inspo. This was my creation. See, right here, this little guy, really interesting. But I had to teach myself how to spiral. I had to guess that it looked like they do using a spiral stitch within the crochet. And I had to teach myself how to decrease, which is where the stitches, where the count stitches get smaller, as you can see right here. So I had to teach myself a lot of new techniques, a lot of new patterns in order to continue my love for crocheting. And outside of this, those are all the projects that I made. If you'd like to come at the front towards the end, I made like a shawl, made hats. This also was another hat, which you'll see me wearing at the end of my slide. This doesn't look like a hat, but it is a hat. Or if you want to add a handle, it can turn into a bag. But those were the projects that I made throughout. And some projects I'm still finishing, like on the table. I will explain that I have a star, I have they call it a bolero, which is basically like half a shirt's like here, and you have the sleeves. And there should be hopefully a bag and more hats to come. I'm excited. But I want to talk about my field experiences. I was able to go to a mom and pop knit shop instead of going to Michael's or Joann's, which was really funny because me and my dad thought it was in Mamaroneck, as in like White Plains, not Mamaroneck, New York. That was a very funny drive, and I really enjoyed it. But this is me at the knit shop. They mainly sell knitting materials, and they have a little bit of crocheting materials, but the yarn can be used regardless. You have to make sure that it matches with the hook sizes, because some hooks, as you guys mainly had like 5mm hooks or 4.5mm hooks, look like the one that I have right here. Some of them are thicker, like really thick. This we can make like a blanket or like a hat, and this is a 10mm. And some of them are really small. You really can't even see. You really can't see this, which usually typically makes doilies. And they even make smaller hooks than this, so that's something. As you can see right here, this is me wearing the hat. So this is how the hat looks like on my head. So it's a kitty hat, and I really like this pattern because it's really simple, and it's a really good hat for beginners to make. And I also like to continue on talking about the interview process, or I like to call the life lessons. I had the pleasure of interviewing 3 wonderful women, Miss Tovar, Miss Julie, and sadly Miss Rinaldi couldn't be here, but Miss Christina Rinaldi. I learned so much from these women in such a short span of time, and the one thing that I regret was not being able to meet these people earlier in my life at Woodlands. I feel like having I felt such a strong connection with these women, and I'm so happy that I was able to interview them because it really shape-shifted my view and perspective. I'm not just crocheting in general as a beginner and trying to branch out, but also an emotional background in terms of adding emotion within crocheting, how you can find crocheting as more of a therapeutic sense. You don't always have to create projects. You can just make chains. If you're angry, just chain. Want to fidget? Just chain. And so I'm so happy, more than elated, to be able to interview with these women. And if I could do it again, I would. If I could call them up again, I would. I might just run up to Ms. Tovar after this and just tell her thank you. But I really enjoyed talking to them. And they all taught me that with crochet, it teaches you how to live and let go. You don't have to hold on. And that's what I also learned as somebody, I didn't mention this earlier, this was a little tricky for me because I don't have all the uses in my right hand. So a lot of times I got discouraged because originally my project was to make a blanket, but I learned that it was very tiresome on my hand. So making and learning new techniques and being more adaptable was the way to go. And I'm really happy about that. And also, on top of that, I also learned how to learn more about myself. So I learned to trust myself. I learned to listen to my body, because a lot of people tend to ignore it, and I didn't want to do that any longer. So with this, I decided to listen. If it got tired, it got tired. If it was hungry, it was hungry. If it wanted to learn, it wanted to learn. And so I'm really happy that in WISE, I was able to achieve this knowledge. Because without it, I don't know how I would manage. On top of, I think my favorite, most important, is organizing. I learned that I tend to overplan, and I tend to focus on the planning and not the action. So Ms. Huber and anybody who's in the WISE room, everybody that helped me with my journey, taught me that I need to just start. Don't think too hard, just do it. If you make a mistake, you can always fix it and try again. And that's life, and I think that's really nice. And so I would like to wrap up my presentation by saying thank you. I would like to say thank you to everyone here who came, who volunteered, who taught me along the way. Even if you only talked to me for 2 seconds, you were still a vital part within my life and in this experience. So I'd like to say thank you. I hope I get to see you. Any questions?
I have a question. I probably missed it, but you have, earlier, you were talking historically, and you were showing 2 pieces that were similar, and you just kind of, one off, you were like, that's needlework, and this question. So what is the difference between?
So needlework doesn't use hooks. Have you seen, I don't know if your mother, sews up clothes, patches. That's needlework. It doesn't use a hook. It uses more like nothing without a hook. So this knitting is considered like a needlework because it uses knitting needles, not a hook, like tambour embroidery or shepherd's knitting, which uses a hook, even though it's considered knitting. Any other questions? No problem. Hello.
Hey, I wanted to encourage middle school students to get involved. What sort of things would you say, given the societal influences that are on it regarding kind of being really fast and getting instant gratification, how would you encourage them, or what would you say to get them interested in this curriculum?
I would recommend them strongly to visit the Crochet and Knitting Club that Ms. Tovar has. I was in the program, it was really helpful, but it was during COVID, so I really wish I was more involved. But I would definitely tell them if they want to find a way to calm themselves down, I strongly recommend crocheting. Can you get lost in the stitches and the patterns? So I really do encourage that. If they feel overwhelmed, because I do that. Where I tend to feel overwhelmed myself, I tend to crochet.
Shanice, hold on. Guys, it's a change of period right now, so I know some people are leaving and some people might be coming in. So, the special part about the model presentation is that everybody gets to see the evaluation. So if you're a Y student, you have to stay. But I understand there's some middle school students or some other students who are visiting, they have to go to their next class. Okay? Yeah, so just give them a moment.
Any other questions before I get evaluated? Here we go.
What's your next project? What do you want to do now that you don't have to have the big audience in front of you and you want to challenge yourself in what you want?
So my next project, I actually have multiple. I am going to, hold on, let me unwrap it. So as you can see, this is a star. So I want to make a star bag. I recently went to Michael's and I bought the color changing yarn. It's like a really, they call it a cake yarn. There's different types like cake yarns. It's similar to, this was from on a yarn wheeler. Some of them are made by hand, as you can see. And some of them, they just come like this, which you can also really get wheeled on a yarn wheeler. But I bought a really big cake yarn. It's like various types of blues. So I'm gonna make a star bag for my friend for her birthday. That's my next project.
So when I was reading your journal, I saw that you had you went to the library, and that's great. That's great. I was wondering, how did you figure out what you were researching? If you could walk us through your thought process of like, I'm going to the library. How was I searching? I'm interested.
So when I went to the library, I was completely overwhelmed. But I remember in the back of my head, I just had learned about yarn farming, so I went straight into the craftivism section, which is crafting and activism. So I went straight to the craftivism section, which also had a hodgepodge of written instructions and diagrams. But I found this one book called Craftivism. I believe I mentioned it in my journal in regards to activists that use craft, or use embroidery, crocheting, knitting, quilting, the whole shebang. So that was my thought process going straight to the library. And when I finally said to myself, I looked for craftivism. That's what's going on.
I know the Knitting Club has a shop because I support it, and it's Omar's older work for one of the club members. When are you taking orders? Will you be able to sell your knitting work? Hats, stuff?
You know, like, I never thought about it. And the amount of people that said, oh, you should sell your stuff. And I think like now I feel more confident, because like before I wasn't so confident, but now I'm confident. And I feel like, you know, the good thing about crocheting is that it's handmade. You can't really find it on machinery, so that's a little cute thing about it. So yeah, I think I might just start some of the projects.
Mr. Holland, tell me your class hat.
I got you. I got you. Just show me the
My
hat
class
you
is
want.
actually being covered right now.
Just show me the hat that you want to make, and I'll start teaching you the basics so you can get a feel of how to do it. Because I don't want to jump into the hat and just get all confused. Any other questions?
Yeah, so you needed a lot of time management for this project. So like, what's like 2 things you learned about your time management for like or how it changed over the process?
I learned that I can't continue the time management that I had in high school into college, because why there is no structure. You have to build that structure. And same with college, they don't give you structure. How here they give you Google Classroom and reminders. I had to be my own reminder, and man, was that difficult. So I suggested, after various tries, I learned that having 2 lists. You have the everything list and the what I'm going to do today list. Because the everything list gets very, very overwhelming. But the today list is like 3 things. And you can pat yourself on the back when you completed those 3 things. I feel like that sense of reward is really nice. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, I just wanted to hear like maybe 1 or 2 things, and that's good. That's,
right.
Yeah.
Ms. Stonecrest, I had your hand raised.
Yes. Great presentation. Thank you for having us and showing us the art of crocheting. Are you interested in expanding your craft to knitting or quilting or
Yes.
other things?
After this, I will be learning how to knit, because I'm really interested in how to knit. So I will be learning how to knit.
I have a question.
All right.
You mentioned the knitting activism. Is there anything that you feel passionate about that you could lend your talent to from the knitting?
Anything I feel passionate about. I feel like I want to go into the medical field. That is something I'm very passionate about. And there's not a lot of people who look like me inside the medical field. And if that means I get to, my little spark means I crochet them a little sweater, or I knit them a little sweater when it gets cold inside the hospital because it's really cold in there, or I make a little hat. Just showing that, just little bits and pieces of myself within that community that feel like I'll make a difference, or that my work is within a future that I want to see myself in as well. It's a little note for myself. That's not this order.
If I remember correctly from the journal, are you going to major in psychology?
Yes, psychology on a pre-med track.
Okay, and the question was, did you want to do art therapy? So it's like, all right, so there's a pre-med track and it's a side gig, but yeah.
But if I were to go into psych full time, because who knows what life has in store for me, I would definitely do art therapy, and I feel like crochet would definitely be one of them.
Okay.
So you said you watched a lot of YouTube and TikTok videos, and I was curious. I don't know if you watched the videos with a lot of frequency before the project started, but if you started, as the project continued, did you see a lot of more how did the video progression change? So like you get a lot more of certain types, or?
I definitely got a lot more like knitting and crocheting videos the more I did my project, because of course I would like more stuff. Like now I'm interested in doing a type of crochet called amiguri, which is toy making, and like I'm really interested into that side. All like my whole entire Instagram feed is just, you know, cakes and like blueberries, all made out of like crocheting, which like sparked my interest. But with prior, it wasn't really a lot of crocheting or anything. It was just like a few there and here. But like the more I got into my project, the more you can see my love expanded for it in social media apps like TikToks. Like I saw this one life hack on how I can crochet on the go with like a knitting needle. So it's crazy how invested you get into a project that it starts impacting your own life.
You have more than one letter to the representatives or so on and so forth. You mentioned Senator Gillibrand. Did you receive any responses from anyone?
I actually never sent the letters.
Okay.
I would like to. I would love to.
You should.
I would like to.
Definitely need to.
No, yeah, I need to.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask a quick question. You made a comment during your presentation that YouTube videos were your favorite form of pattern learning, but now you don't have patience for that. Would you expand on that thought?
So for beginners, I definitely recommend YouTube videos because you get to see the movements and the visuals. But as more and more time you get acquainted with the yarn, the stitches, a lot of times you might not have the patience to pause and wait for the next instruction. So what I started to do is I would watch the entire video and I will start writing the pattern down because I can read and crochet patterns. So instead of having to wait for the next instruction, I can just, row 2, I have to double crochet, skip, and then so on and so forth. But like at the beginning, YouTube was really my main source of, was my main educator. Now it's more just books and diagrams and maybe freeform where I saw interest.
Follow up to that, I'm curious, are you using the new notation you learned to write down, to jot down notes, or are you like writing it out free?
Sometimes it's a mix of both. Sometimes I would use the notations that I learned, and sometimes I would write it fully, depending on how complex the pattern is for me that I have to write it down.
Cool.
So from like your journals and from like what you mentioned about your PIC articles and your projects, it shows that a lot of the things that you do with like the Willow Project, yarn bombing, and just a lot of the things that you even going to the medical field, you have like a lot of compassion, especially for people who are less unfortunate. And it shows like, I'm just thinking like, is yarn bombing something that you would personally do in like the future as like in a form of activism and like that you would like to pursue?
Honestly, yeah. I would definitely go into yarn bombing. I think it's a very interesting community. I would love to learn more about it. Yeah, I would definitely go into yarn activism.
How do you feel now that this is all come to fruition and you see the fruits of your labors?
I'm happy. I'm really happy. All right, Ben?
What advice can you give to us otherwise students that have their presentations coming up, like not to feel stressed or scared, or like how to really like get everything?
I did a lot of practicing. I did not write a speech because I knew that I was going to get so caught up in trying to remember the speech that I won't remember like finite details. So I would do the speech over and over and over again. I would catch some things that I missed within my practice that I would add into my iPads for notes that I want to mention, or if I find myself forgetting, I would write them down and just repeat that process over and over and over again. And I also, before I even started practicing, I created a potential layout. As you can see, if you have a paper, it shows you the steps of what I'm going to be talking about. So I wrote that first and tried to get an understanding on how I wanted to go about it. And definitely, I added that list like quite a few times, but this one I have here today is one I like the most. So honestly, just keep editing your structure and try to see if some things flow and if some things don't flow, you can always just change it around. Yeah.
So now, if there's no more questions, we move into the evaluation piece. Do we have a volunteer evaluator who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Chantal.
Okay, Shanice, I think I speak for y'all, everyone, that we love to see the passion and everything that you've seen in your project. You should included your research into like your pig articles, like your history. Like you focus a lot on history and like it sort of connects to the pig articles and research at the same time because you focus a lot of like history and crocheting and like the Irish famine and a lot of those things that contribute to how crocheting changed over time. And I think that shows a lot of like in your projects and in your journal and in your presentation. And I liked your full your bibliography and how it was organized and like how you described everything and how your passion and just everything that you show is just, it shows that you intensely research and intensely put in effort into your project, into crocheting, not only just crocheting, but learning everything about it, the history, the makings, and connecting with other people who are also interested in crocheting. So I feel like that's just something that I really, truly admire a lot about your project and the confidence that you showed when presenting and your comfortability and even the little slight humor you have in your journals. And I feel like I could all appreciate that in this lesson. So yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go category by category. The journal, 151 pages, 83 entries. You started back in January 13th and brought it all the way out to May 5th. Everything from January through about mid-March is a series of short, friendly letters, right? And you used your little screen tool, but it looks like little felt pen letters on lined notebook paper. Okay, and so that was, and you always, it started out with some version of hello, hi, how you doing, ahoy, matey, and you always ended with toodles, okay? So it was a very friendly journal, which kind of belied the fact that you packed all this knowledge and information into it. And so you have interspersed into it with, you have all these notes from like interviews and pictures of crochet projects, and then you went to Italy, so you have all these pictures here. I'm at the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Look down, right? All of this stuff, and it was very, very rich and interesting. So I was, the tone was kind of cheerful but candid. So I was pretty thrilled with the journal. I have a couple of quotes I want to read that were kind of my favorites. You got to the end of the whole thing. You said you were sorry to have to stop journaling, and so right in the middle of that you said, I journal myself, privately, but I only journal every 6 to 9 months. It's more of a I will do it when I can no longer contain my emotions in my body. I need to dump it somewhere. Okay, so it's the catharsis school of journaling. So it looks like you already know about this, and this is a good thing, and you like the fact that journaling on a regular basis meant that there wasn't like a backlog of emotions you had to get out. So that's great. You use the reflection process of the journal to good advantage. Then another one I liked, upon viewing the canals of Venice, Italy, I expected something very historical, and you kind of said, look how pretty that is. What the heck, right? So it's the exact opposite of what you would expect. And then you get to the end, and of course you're in the senior year, and things kind of build up, and everything hits you at the same time. And he says, the pressure is getting heavy, since I not only have to finish my presentation for the model presentation, but I have to commit myself to a school, like college, and soon, and find a prom dress. Okay, so the idea that you're under so much stress that the prom dress and the college choice and the model presentation are all at the same level. Okay, so it was priceless. So I was just thrilled to death about that. So I'm happy with the journal. Then I'll move on to the other categories. PE. There's roughly 30 hours required. You actually spent 54 hours and 20 minutes. You do weight training, Pilates, yoga, dancing, walking. I think, climbing the Leaning Tower of Pisa and walking around Rome and all that, that just upped your hours requirement hugely. So you covered that, okay. Then research. I kind of thought techniques in pattern reading, history lessons, the yarn bombing activism, the stuff that we saw in the final presentation. It's all in there. You exploited your trip to Venice to go to Burano. There's a little village outside of Venice, which is one of the places where, you know, oh, there's a famine, but we know how to make this Italian lace and we can sell it so nobody starves to death. And so she went and got a little piece of lace from Burano and made a field trip there. So good exploitation. Okay. The pig articles. Well, gosh, until you just told me you hadn't sent the letter. My favorite thing was the Willow project, right? So you have for years and years and years the North Slope of Alaska. The environmentalists have pushed back on the oil interests, and finally, strangely, on a Democratic administration, we kind of gave way, and so that not only has problems for the caribou migrating and whether the native people living there aren't going to have their livelihood anymore. It also means that our carbon footprint goes up every time we increase the amount of oil we explore. And so you got on that. You went so far as to find the environmental impact statement for this giant project and selectively took pieces out of it, put it into the letter to the senator to send, okay? And that's the whole process of what adults do to go out if you're an individual citizen and make things better. You go out and you figure out what knowledge you need. You don't just look at the surface of the thing. You do a little research behind it. You manage then to communicate it to the next person, and you're set. All you got to do is send that letter. Send that letter. Okay. The bibliography, as Chantel said, 45 entries, annotated, which means I checked some of the links in advance. I got hold of it to make sure that it works. So a good bibliography, it should allow you to find whatever that person had, and it should also tell you whether you want to find it or not. So there's a little descriptive paragraph of each thing she went through. So there were a few books, a lot of links, some interviews. And so if I now know if I want to track down that person to interview or if I want to follow that link or not just by looking at the description. So good bibliography. Final presentation, I look for show and tell. The historical stuff, right? You went into great depth and detail both about how this art, this fiber art came about, and then you actually got out there and showed us how to do it and had us do it with you. So that's just about the best kind of show that you can have. I will tell you, you went so far as to learn how to do it both left-handed and right-handed for us. And the camera reverses everything you do. So when you do it right-handed, the camera is showing it to people left-handed. And when you do it left-handed, the camera is showing it to people right-handed. So the fact that you covered your bases was very good and important. So overall, I'm really happy with this project. Good job.
Thank you.
No one wants to follow that?
Never want him to go first. I've been doing it for a lot of years. You don't. You do not.
I can go. I'll try. So I was also very impressed that you started your journal so early and enjoyed the, I guess, the colloquial manner in which it was written. So it was fun to read. I had specific commentary. So I think, okay. So this is because there was a lot of stuff interspersed with like health, right? Mm-hmm. And how health was changing over the journey of doing your project. And I really liked the fact that you were noting that you were like, okay, I need a rest day. And that you were like, I was only able to knit for this, or sorry, crochet for this long today, and then I had to stop. I think that's something that, so I saw that your choices of exercise also sort of seem to fit into like, this is something that's not going to stress me out too much. And I thought that was really important, something that you enjoy and that works in really well to your life. And I liked how that between the two of them, so I mentioned this with the journal because partially because I was seeing it when I was reading the entries, but partially because, so you know how you started out with that large project? In art research in particular, there's something called art-based research. And part of it's like, how does the process, like, how does your process change with respect to human experience? And that was your personal human experience. Your personal human experience was, oh, I'm trying to do a lot of this, and oh, my body can't handle it right now, so I need to change a little bit. Oh, I wanted to do this whole monster quilt, but actually I'm doing all these little, small, more manageable projects. I'm learning a lot in the whole process. And like that whole thing, that's a big part of art-based research, so good job on that. That was evident from the journal. Now, the other research, like the historical research and stuff, I really liked the fact that you, it became clear through the interview. I think I probably just, or not the interview, the presentation. I might have read it wrong, but I didn't realize. I was like, oh, there's this Italian Brano. I thought it was crocheting, and then there was the Irish, and I was like, it's really cool that they're parallels. And I actually really, one of the things that I was hoping to see, and I did see it, was like there's parallels between the crocheting and other fiber arts or other textiles. And that was the parallels. That was really neat that you managed to find them both. And okay, so participation in government. I really enjoyed the letters to the senator and just like your whole process. And the one thing I would have wished to see a teensy bit more of was I thought the yarn bomb or the yarn bomb was it yarn bombing? It was yarn bombing.
Yeah.
Yarn bombing was cool. I don't know if I would have either liked to see more like thoughts about like what you could have done there, but you did talk a little bit about that here, or like you don't necessarily have to pull it off, but like what would you want to do, or like I did think the article about, or the information about the TikTokers was semi-relevant, but like something that was slightly more relevant to your particular project or crocheting. And that was my only commentary, because I really did enjoy those articles. I'm going to date myself, but like back when I did WISE, we did not do anything like this, so this was really cool. Like you did a really nice job. Okay. And yeah, your bibliography is, I like the fact it's relatively thorough. I skimmed through it just now. And I do like the fact that you've got all these little annotations in here saying like, I would only recommend this website, for example, like on the last page, how to increase, decrease crocheting in rows, like stuff like that, like all these little notes to yourself or to your viewers. It's really useful. So you did a really good job with the presentation. Specifically, I often get distracted by slides. I did notice you in front. You were looking at us in the eye and you were talking, but if I look at you, I don't pay attention. So if I'm watching the slides, I pay attention, but oftentimes people have too many things on their slides. And so the fact that you had such minimal slides and that your slides like either had pictures or like just a few words, and they were really helpful for me for following. So for at least that was really good, well done. Also, I liked the presentation, and I specifically liked the little detail. Like you did a lot of little details, like wrap it this way, or like turn your needle down, or I guess it's called needle down when you're going through. So that was useful. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Alright. So, Shanice, you've always been a person that I held in high regard because you're a very studious person. Your personality is amazing. And to see this amazing presentation, I love it. So, your journal shows your personality, which can bring a light into a lot of people's lives, like the the letters to Senator Gillenberg? Yeah. So I saw that you were very passionate about this, which everybody should be, which is it's a good thing. And then physical education, your PE, you always wrote like what you did in the heading, and you wrote about it in your journal, which was nice. I should probably do that because y'all don't know how far behind I am, but let's not talk about that. So research. Wow, you've done so much research into something that you're very passionate about, and that's absolutely amazing. I could never do that myself, but you can, because you are you, I am me, we're all different people. The bibliography, damn, this is a huge packet, dude. Absolutely massive. But this just shows how much you actually care about this. And I like that. And the final presentation, wow. It was just absolutely amazing. And it's good to see that you were able to, do this. I don't even know where I'm going with this. But one thing that I really, really liked about it was your demonstration. How you had the overhead camera showing your hands. Even though I didn't do it, I was still very confused, but you explained it in a way that maybe not so confused. I was still confused, but you explained it in a very good way, which shows that you're a good teacher. And the overall experience, wow, this was absolutely amazing. I hope that this takes you places that you've never imagined in your life. And so that's it.
Now we also have to follow Daniel, so let's see what we can do with that. All of the requirements were met. The dashboard piece was nice, and you folks may not know that, but WISE says evolves every year, and that's what's nice about it. For the last 50, every year there's something new, and we as evaluators received basically a one-page synopsis of all of the different pieces that were available. So that made it very quick for me. Unlike my colleague, Mr. Warner, I wasn't able to count all of the entries, but I know that they were there because I now have that on one sheet. But I'll go through them very quickly as well. I think the overall theme is you are a very reflective practitioner. I know you quite well, and I know you are that way in everything you do. You're always reflecting on what I could have done, what I do, what I learned from this, and things like that. And that's going to serve you well in life. I know that. Journal, again, I was kind of interested in your writing in the beginning and then transitioning over to the typed piece, and you have your reasons for that. But again, just an interesting piece. It was very personal in the beginning, and it continues that way. But there's something about the written word that I think we're losing as a society. This is just a soapbox piece, and I think I really enjoyed that. It felt very intimate and felt very comfortable as I was reading through that. Your PE experience, again, that reflectiveness, you went out and sought things. You didn't just do yoga, you sought out yoga. You sought out a practitioner that you really connected with, again, even if it was on the medium of YouTube or something like that. So good. Hopefully we're all hearing that, because everyone is out there. Everybody's piece and connection is out there. Sometimes we have to do a little bit more work to find it. The research. The interviews. I mean, when I mentor students, I always try to get them to do interviews, and you articulated the reason why. That personal connection that you may or may not ever have. You had that with those 3 people that you mentioned. So again, wonderful. I missed an opportunity for that myself. As I was looking through your research, while I'm not familiar with the art, if you will, I am familiar with the connections to mathematics. And what I failed to do, and I apologize for this, I could have made that connection with you. And as you're running this, I know what you're doing. At the end, I'm reading this. I was reading through your research and I was like, where's the math? Where's the math connection there? And I know you know it, but I could have helped that. So sometimes we as the outside folks have to take that initiative also. It's not all on the presenter. So again, I apologize for that. The pig articles were great. I love that you connected them into the presentation. A lot of people don't get to see the pig connection because they're really journal heavy and written, but here, we were able to, see the connection that you made between your social studies class, if you will, and the presentation. So thank you for doing that. Definitely the bibliography thorough. I think we're transitioning as a society to more video and less the written, and you have a connection of all three of those. So, I hope that your colleagues have that same thing as we look through their journals, because videos are great, but that written word has gotten to us where we are now. So thank you for making that connection. And the final presentation, definitely in a word, amazing. I think your ability to teaching is a two-dimensional art. Okay? We hop up on that blackboard, we're doing our thing there. We're having Socratic conversations with students, more of a two-dimensional. You were able to bring that three-dimensional world in and show us very patiently, very precisely. Again, as Mr. Warner mentions, both-handed folks, and sometimes we as educators don't take that into account, the different types of learners that we have in our audience. And you displayed that full front here without the 10, 12 years plus that I had in training to do that. So very nicely done there. I've got one question that's rhetorical. Was this an easy project? No. Rhetorical. Oh. I know your answer. I know your answer. Sometimes the simplest quote unquote projects, learning how to crochet, the amount of knowledge that we gain from that, not only of the art but the peripheral, is priceless. I thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, mentor always goes last. I'm going to keep it on the short side because we've had a lot of discussions, and I'm sure we're going to continue talking in the next few weeks at least. I'm incredibly proud and impressed of the work that you've done. I love the fact that you were able to make connections between different eras of history, the fact that you were able to find parallels, not just between styles of artwork that you were focused on, but between economic situations in the cultures across time, was something that was really impressive, and that shows that you were really paying attention to the research and the work that you were doing. You were really invested in the work that you were doing on more than just the surface level of learning the process. The fact that you were so willing to step out of your comfort zones and learn to read different forms of patterns and learn to figure out what the gauges were and what that meant and how you can exploit that in different types of pattern and work was wonderful to see, because a lot of people get really reluctant to do that. They get comfortable with the one way they learned it, and they don't want to find the other methodologies and grow. And you're always looking to find something new to grow towards and to grow into, and to then take that information and use it to grow into another new place. And it's going to take you really far. I'm really so thrilled that I got a chance to know you over the last few months. So, thank you. At this point, the very last part is the mentee has a chance to respond or rebut to any of the comments made by the evaluator. So if you want to contest something, or if you want to say something back, this is your chance.
I really loved everyone's response, the critiques, the compliments, everything. Carolina, you mentioned how you wish I added more pushing within the yarn bombing, like my own feelings. And I totally agree. And I look back at my journal, I look back at it recently. I do wish I put more emphasis on my feelings instead of just putting just like gritting information. Some journals I do put my input on, but not all. If I got the ability to do it again, I would definitely put my own flair on like how I feel about it. Cause like imagine I'm bombing like the bottom floor of the Eiffel Tower. Totally. But
During bomb at tank.
that's all I'm saying. Like.
Gas station.
But I thank you for your thoughts and thank you for looking through my journal. I know it was a lot. I was actually really scared because I was like, this looks a little intimidating, like 83 entries, 151 pages. I was like, dang, this is a lot. But I'm really happy that you guys got the chance to look at it. Even if it wasn't the whole thing, just the thought that you looked at it means a lot to me. That means you care, and I really value that, and I thank you. Do I evaluate myself?
You don't have to. It's
I guess the one thing I would do over is probably structure out my research, but that's the whole point, is that you learn. And I learned that I want to have a little bit of research from the beginning and slowly build on it. And I would love to do that in college. If I ever get an essay or a project regarding medicine, medicine-wise, or even an English project about somebody, I would definitely slowly build my research and slowly start jotting notes and making a setup for myself. And that's why I went here in Wise, and I'm really grateful for that experience. So I would say thank you to all the evaluators, and Miss Hubert, and Miss Dean, Miss Julie, everybody here really. Thank you. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Congratulations, you passed Wise.